And we're live. We're back. Amazing. Let's just run a 30-second countdown because we can. And I'm going to compose myself and then we'll kick off the show. On Instagram. Guys watching me on Facebook, I'm streaming on Instagram too. So I was just talking to those guys while I played that. But now we're all here and together. Let's kick off the show. So welcome to 2021. It's Tuesday, January 19th. And I'm excited to be back streaming live, presenting what is a show now called Sound Advice. Used to be called Ask Me Anything when we ran a trial of it last year. We made 12 episodes, I think, in September, October time, 2020. A show that worked really well. But we did decide to call it a day after 12 episodes because we didn't really have a plan. We wanted to change the name. We were getting loads of inquiries. Loads of people wanted to come on the show. Loads of exciting stuff was happening, but we just didn't really have any infrastructure. So we stopped with the intention of starting again a week later. And as always, as happens, it ended up getting dropped down the list. But we're making a conscious effort to bring it back. And here's why. So just what I wanted to kick off with really was, what are the three main reasons that we decided to bring this show back? So the first is I love the high commitment, the high pressure of actually just making something every day. I would love to be in a position, a lifestyle where I could make a video every day, like a vlog, like one of my favorite YouTubers, Casey Neistat. He started his daily vlog just because he wanted the commitment of making and creating every day. I don't quite have that. I can't really make that time. So this live stream is a really great thing for me and for the business around me to have to do to actually get some content made. Otherwise, it just doesn't happen because there's always a client or a problem or something else to be doing, and that creative falls down the list. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, high pressure. Yes, it's live. Yes, it's not quite as curated. We're relying on me saying something interesting, which is obviously debatable at times, but it's it's interesting. We'll see how it goes. I imagine, well, there's currently nobody watching me on Instagram and nobody watching me on any of the platforms. So what does it matter? This is just a perfect example of the fact that I'm live streaming it. We're actually recording something, which we will then be able to turn into lots of other pieces of content and share across the web to generate, I guess, attention about what we're doing and conversations that we want to have with a wider audience. And I'm making it in a format, and actually I'm all on my own doing it, which is great because I haven't promoted it. So that's the second reason that we're bringing it back is, first of all, it's the high pressure thing. Secondly, it's such a fast way of making content, original thought leadership at scale. So what we were doing in September, October last year was we would record a show. At that time, we were getting guests, which is something we're going to do again. And then we were cutting it up every day into shorter clips to put on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And Twitter, and I guess TikTok as well, if we really wanted to do that. And it had a really good effect. So we were turning this 15, 20-minute, half-hour conversation into 20 pieces of content, which was just building us this huge library of content to share. And that content at scale thing really does work. Less about the quality, more about the quantity. Let other people subjectively decide whether they like the content. I'm not one who believes in marking their own homework, so I don't decide whether I think it's good enough quality. I put it out there, and then if it's not working, we change it. But in my experience, this live stream thing, it did work for us. So it's a great way for us to make content at scale. Third thing, and the third reason that we're bringing it back, which is probably the most obvious, is the amount of outreach that it drove for us last time. So we invited guests on the show, and I was just answering their questions about podcasting. So it was a bit like having that initial meeting that you're having with a prospective client, but we were doing it in public, I guess. And it worked really well. We got lots of people asking lots of really interesting questions across lots of podcasting topics. And then it gave us a way that we could then cut up those really interesting sections where we'd had someone else, a third party, asking us a question, which brought it that credibility and sort of validated more. Like, it obviously it looks less contrived, and we would take those pieces of content and then we would share them. So the outreach piece is great. So this show will give us an opportunity to talk to all kinds of different people. And also that drove last time inbound as well. I think after making 12 episodes, we had 16 inbound leads, which was amazing. I tell you what else is amazing. If you don't promote these lives, whatever the platforms tell you, people aren't watching them. Well, they're definitely not watching them at 10 o'clock in the morning. We got 1,000 people follow us on Instagram, and not a single person watching this. So all those people who are worried about going live because God knows what might happen, like, give it a shot, because probably no fucker's going to watch you anyway. So that's why we're bringing it back. Really excited. It's going to be happening Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays at 9:30 in the morning. Our working week is such in the business OneFinePlay that I run that on a Monday we have a morning team meeting, and on a Friday we have a morning team meeting at 9:30. So I thought, let's do these live streams Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and essentially interact with the community at that time. So I'm pretty excited to be doing that. So, let's chat a little bit about podcasting today. Very top line. This is quick. Got lots to be getting on with. But we've seen a lot of change in podcasting in the last 6 months. And especially in the last 3 months, there's been a lot of consolidation. Companies buying other companies, podcasts being bought by channels, all sorts of things going on, which is super interesting. So Spotify acquiring the likes of Happy Hour, Jack Mate's podcast, or obviously more famously the Joe Rogan Experience. You've got brands being bought by Amazon. There's all sorts going on. But what I'm always really interested in is how it's evolving for creators. There's a lot of conversation around the business end of podcasting. But the thing that really interests me, because it's what I end up doing all day and the kind of people I end up talking to all day, is how is it evolving for creators? And right now, I'm going to break down the top 5 things that I'm seeing in podcasting. And then I'm going to outline, very top line, my predictions for the year ahead. So the first thing that we've seen so much of, obviously because it's January, is new shows. They are all over the place. Every day there's a new show launching. In fact, we're guilty of it as a podcasting network. I think we've got 3 shows releasing this month and 2 next month. People worked in 2020 to make a show, and they're like, yeah, we'll launch it in January, new year, which is a great idea. So loads and loads of new shows. I guess it means it's a little bit saturated too, because everyone's doing it, but maybe you can get on the old bandwagon. The next thing that we're seeing, which is amazing to watch, I guess, is, and this is sort of, in line with the pandemic, is that there are all kinds of new podcasters coming on board that have no idea what they're doing. Lots of personal brands and also businesses. So, established brands who are going, okay, well, we're not really sure what we should do. And we can't really make video content. And, oh, well, I've heard about podcasting. That's trendy. I listen to lots of podcasts. Let's make a podcast. Oh, and it's cheap. And so there's this whole raft of new podcasters coming into the medium because they've heard about the hype, and on the whole, they're dreadful. But we'll come back to why that is at another time. But, I hope it's great to see people embracing the medium, and let's hope that it gets better with time. But my third point, which again fascinates me, is the people making these shows are putting in even less effort than they used to. I don't know why or how anyone thinks it's acceptable. And the number of times I've actually had a conversation with someone this week, yesterday it was, who's got a podcast, and he was like, what do you think of my show? And I was like, well, I was being polite. And I was like, would you listen to your show? He's like, nah, it's a bit boring. Like, what? You wouldn't make that if it was a video, or if it was, a copywriter. So why does it suddenly become acceptable in podcasting? I'm not sure. There's this real hobbyist mentality. And I think that's something that we'll see change this year. But anyway, so that's my my third thing that I've seen is just this, this whole raft of new people, and they're making even less effort than they used to. They used to be like this real passion because people thought they were part of a secret club. And I think now the secret club is becoming a little bit diluted, and the barrier to entry is so apparently low that what's happening is that people think, oh, this is easy, and we're at home, and it's, I can record it on Zoom, and because it's Zoom and that's where I also just have meetings about whatever, I don't need to make a lot of effort. And that's so not true for compelling content. Another thing that I've seen so much of, and it's rife, I actually put a LinkedIn post out about this yesterday, is more what I like to call the Contrapreneur podcast. So many jokers out there who are like, oh yeah, I've got a #1 show, or it's award-winning, or international, or 3 times on the Discover page of Apple Podcasts. Like, stop with all your bullshit. Like, it's like, I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Mike Winnett who runs a channel called The Contrapreneur, and he he published a blank book and got it to #1 on Amazon. It's the same in podcasting. Like, maybe you're in a random category, or but a #1 podcast in Chile, that's not, like, don't pass that off. Or #1 podcast in, for a day or for a minute, or I don't know how whatever. But like, as someone I saw a tweet about said, you just have to put the number of listens next to it, or the amount of revenue you're generating, or something. It doesn't mean anything. And I'm seeing more and more of that Contrapreneur-esque. It's like the big ego play to kind of put other people down, or like, because you've put #1 podcast, or, chart-topping podcast, you're going to get more listens or have more gravitas. It makes no sense to me. But anyway, seeing so much of that now. I guess it's just also a sign of how competitive and how difficult it is to get really good traction in a podcast. And then the fifth thing that we're really seeing a lot of is, of course, audio taking new directions. And by that, yes, I mean Clubhouse. I'm not a massive Clubhouse fan. In fact, I've been on it a couple of times, and I didn't really like it. It doesn't really suit my way of consuming content, I guess. But if you haven't been on Clubhouse, it's basically like rooms for people to go and talk. It's like a Facebook group. It's audio only, and people go in there and chat. It's like organized Zoom calls that are available 24/7. Again, in my experience, full of life coaches, people running businesses that I've got a very certain type of person. I don't know, maybe it's the algorithm what it's serving me up, but it's not. It's basically full of the people I try and avoid. But hey, maybe for some people they really like it. But the interesting thing is that it's audio first. It's audio only. It's a bit like a live podcast, or it's a bit like this, but with 20 people, and you've got the people hosting it. Then you can join the room and get involved if you want to, but not if you don't. So it's a real sign, along with, like, obviously the growth of Alexa and Amazon and voice devices and IoT, that audio is a real player for the future. And in my opinion, podcasting is the gateway drug to that. Brands will be making podcasts to taste and get a feel for how their brand sounds in audio. So they'll make a podcast, and that will then in turn allow them to inform, how does their brand sound? What tone of voice does it have? What is it male? Is it female? What nationality is it? How does it behave? That kind of thing. You have that same identity for how your brand looks. A podcast is a really good way to figure out how your brand sounds, so that eventually when you build an Alexa skill, or audio becomes more influential in the presence of a brand, you will learn that through making your podcast. And things like Clubhouse are a really interesting way for people to get more comfortable with making audio. So my predictions for the year ahead, I'm going to do a whole video of this, actually, that I'm not going to do live, but I'm going to make it properly, and we'll put that over on our YouTube channel. But my headlines for predictions for 2021, I actually was supposed to be pressing some buttons on here and making this pretty. But look, here's a predictions for 2021 banner for those of you watching it on the Facebook live stream. So I think that first off, and I think this will really, there's lots of people coming into podcasting, and the barrier to entry seems low. One of the things I think is really interesting, and I had a little debate with Connor, our producer, before we came on air. On air, can I say that? Before we went live, is that I don't think you can make the assumption that so the statistics say that there are about 1.7, 1.8 million podcasts. There are 35 million YouTube channels and there are 600 million blogs. So that makes it easier to break into podcasting. That's the logic. Apparently that's how like a podcasting company would pitch to you why you should make a podcast. But I'd actually agree with that, because I think the problem is that we've already hit the same point between YouTube and podcasting, in that the successful creators, the one who are going to make it, that 1%, those few that can live on it, they're already established, but they're established in the YouTube world, like, your YouTubers. They're also established in podcasting. Then there's this massive void period that you've got to, the chasm that you've got to cross. And then there's this pool of people underneath at the bottom, the hobbyists and the never uploaded a video or never uploaded a podcast episode. And crossing that chasm is really difficult. And whether it's 1 million or 35 million, that chasm still exists. So you're not joining just because there's only 1 million. It doesn't make it any easier to become in this top echelon. You're just going to be growing the pool at the bottom of people that get 17 listens to their podcast episode because they didn't do any marketing. And so my first prediction for 2021 is that you're going to see more shows that are podcasts that are built as brand experiences, which just happen to be podcast first. So that's how we approach all of the podcasts that we really commit to now as a company. OneFinePlay, which is the podcasting company that I run on a daily basis, where we're commissioning a show or where we're putting in our own money to make a show, what we're looking at is how can we diversify across different formats. So what could we build that is basically going to be YouTube or it's going to be Netflix or Channel 4 commissionable, or could be a West End play, or could be a book, or could be a live experience. And then how is that coming back into podcasting so that we can prove the audience and we can get some traction before we move there. So I think, we're also looking at how can we build this? What does the cover art look like that lends itself really easily to merchandise or to merchandising or to building brand experience another way? How can we allow fans to interact with our show? Just because it happens to be a podcast first, people are going to want a bigger experience, and the only way you're going to make it successful at scale or get real traction is by doing that. Any decent sized podcast show has merch, and they do live podcasts, and they maybe go on tour, and they release a book, that kind of thing. And I know that's true because actually we're releasing a podcast yesterday. We're releasing a podcast in a couple of weeks, and we've started the pre-release PR for it. So we've been out to some national press, and we've already been approached by a book publisher for that show before it's even released, because they can see how it so easily moves cross format, which means all this work we've put into establishing the story for the podcast will pay out exponentially, because that makes the book so much easier to write off the bat. Whereas if you create a podcast that is, just an audio only experience, and you haven't thought about how it's going to get bigger, you're just making life hard for yourself, and you're never going to get anywhere. Because fundamentally, podcasting is only $1 billion industry. Now, I joke with my team that my ambitions are greater than $1 billion, meaning that I say it's $1 billion industry, $1 billion ad industry. So there's $1 billion of advertising revenue going into podcasting in 2021, they reckon. So I want a company that's bigger than that in itself. So I've got to diversify in order to achieve it, I assume. So that's a bit of a joke with the team, but I want us, I think that to build a successful show, you've got to diversify. I also think that you'll see a huge rise in influencers in podcasting. So your YouTubers, your social media influencers, your Instagram influencers, TikTok, your TikTokers, those kind of people, they're going to diversify their content and their audiences into audio. So where you've got these currently the old guard of podcasting, people who think they're safe. So the BBC, NPR, Joe Rogan, any celebrity who thinks they're, whoever they might be, what we're going to find is you can already see it. If you look at last year's channel, if you look at last year's top 100 shows, you can see the YouTubers rising. So your likes of, I mean, you know, even someone like James Smith, who runs James Smith Academy, he's in the top 100 shows in the UK. Or, you know, Jackmate just got bought by Spotify, but he came across from YouTube. Or has diversified. Or Impulsive, the show by Logan Paul. It's doing bits in podcasting, and they're bringing their audiences with them, and the audiences consuming podcasting are less, and it's because they're willing to diversify, they're willing to learn, and they listen to their audiences. They're not just comfortable and what's the word I'm looking for? Don't know, but like they're just comfortable with their fame, and you know, I am, and therefore it will be okay. So I think you're going to see this real leveling of influence at the top of the charts. And I think thirdly, the biggest change that we're going to see for podcasts is I think that shows are going to get shorter in general. So I'd say most shows at the moment are over 30 minutes. Most podcast episodes are 40 minutes to an hour, especially for the less experienced podcaster and more of the hobbyist, which counts for 99% of people. I think show times are going to get shorter. And I think that's for multiple reasons. More people living at home, so they've got less time to squeeze in an episode. We just constantly in that more culture still. And also I think you're going to see more limited series. So I think you're going to see, like, the Netflix model has been they've tried to replicate the Netflix model in podcasting through from a monetization perspective. So, you know, Luminary charging you a subscription fee a month to get to premium content. And there's talk actually of Amazon doing that, Apple doing that. That was being talked about yesterday, or, you know, that kind of thing. But I don't think that's necessarily happening anytime soon, effectively. But what I do think we'll see is more brands and individuals running limited series or campaigns. So you see it on Netflix all the time, where it's like it says limited series and it's just like one-off thing. You're going to see more of this one-off thing promoted heavily, probably around more news and topical stuff. I think that's going to be huge in podcasting over the coming 12 months. So be 6 20-minute episodes, and that'll be it as a brand, and it'll spin up and then it'll disappear again. And I think that's a really interesting way for brands to look at it. So if I was a drinks brand, I might look at doing a one-off 6-part about, you know, that tells a story. Like McDonald's famously did it. Pacific Content made which is a production company in the US. They made a podcast for McDonald's where it just looked into the disappearance of the McDonald's Szechuan sauce. And it was a 6-part one-off piece, and it never came back. Great idea. I think you'll see more of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go more into my podcast predictions, as I say, in a proper video. But I just wanted to share some of my first thoughts. We've actually had some people follow us, which is exciting, and some people that I know. So welcome. And we got some viewers on YouTube, on Facebook. So, you know, maybe this thing does work. So anyway, I think it's probably enough rambling for today. Coming up in future episodes, we're going live Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. Going to use this channel for 3 things. Number 1, to interview interesting people. So everything we're talking about on this channel is creator first. It's not industry first. It's not about how brands can make more money or how networks can grow. It's about how can creators work more effectively, and basically how can you go from hobbyist to the business of podcasting. That's what we're looking at. That's the overarching theme of the sound advice. It's hopefully going to be me deciphering that through some interviews where I'm going to chat to interesting people, either people that run products or podcasters, see what we can learn from them. I'm going to talk to creators, anyone they want. I'm going to run Ask Me Anything sessions again. So we're going to go out into Facebook groups, or you can email us live at OneFinePlay.com, and you can come on the show and ask your question, which I think will be pretty exciting. And that's my favorite bit, just, you know, taking real life examples, real life questions, whether it's like, how do I get my first sponsor, or what does a pitch deck look like, or how do I approach brands, or how do I approach other creators to trade ads, or what is dynamic ad insertion, whatever it might be. I'll answer any of those questions. I do it all day, every day for clients. Love to do it for you guys too. And then thirdly, I'm going to just do some more like this, where I just jump on, talk about what's going on, talk about rant, basically, in a roundabout way. I'm kind of known, I guess, for being opinionated. I really want to get rid of the nonsense, the bullshit from podcasting. I see it all the time. It drives me crazy. I want a channel, an outlet to share my thoughts on it. This is going to be that space. This has been Sound Advice. I've been James Bishop. Until tomorrow at 9:30. Peace.